Welcome to my Bilderberg coverage for 2025. This is our 10th year of covering the Bilderberg Group Conference, which is a conference of 130 of the world's most influential leaders. Sometimes they call themselves the most powerful people in the world. I'm going to leave all of you to decide that, because the composition of Bilderberg has changed over the years. I think there's a lot of questioning about who they're inviting, why it's so focused on people that are similar in so many ways in terms of their thinking, and also from similar industries. There seems to be sort of a hidden agenda of the direction that they're going. I'd like to see more diversity of thought myself. And I want to introduce myself. I'm Sandra Rupp. I was placed on the Thinkers 50 Guru Radar list for the world's top business thinkers back in 2011. And I've been following these important conferences ever since. I'm an executive coach. I've worked in executive search, based in New York for 20 years, now in Florida. I've worked internationally, from World Economic Forum to Davos to Cannes Lions to Consumer Electronics Show. You will have seen videos and podcasts covering these events and actually having quite a bit of influence. I have exposed a lot of the secrets of World Economic Forum, their lack of getting women to the conference, their not wanting to get women to the conference, and through meeting with a lot of the CEOs and attendees of these conferences over the years, I've been able to really get some keen insights. I've also gotten to get to know some of the top media in the world, including my friends over at the Financial Times, who featured me on their FT Alphaville site. That was my international debut through the Financial Times, and I want to thank them today. What we have to talk about today is the meeting in Stockholm, Sweden, which just took place June 12th to June 15th. And it was a very eventful Bilderberg. The usual suspects were there in terms of the independent media covering it. I am able to get some keen insights from Josh and Dan and a variety of people who cover the conference there. We also have one journalist from The Guardian, Charlie Skelton, who has just written up his analysis of Bilderberg in The Guardian. In terms of the Financial Times, actually, Gideon Rockman, their chief foreign affairs correspondent, is invited to Bilderberg this year. Now, it used to be Martin Wolf, but Gideon is on the list. I've seen him there for a couple of years here in a row now. And he is a very likable person. And what I love about Gideon is that when Dan Dix, the independent journalist, comes up to him, or Josh Friedman comes up to him, he actually talks to them. And he says, you know, he'll give little tidbits of what is going on without saying too much. So, you know, he's like comfortable enough in his own shoes that he's not intimidated by the Bilderbergers into being silenced. And really, because they use this Chatham House rule where you are not supposed to technically talk about what an individual said. So the whole thing about Chatham House rule is it's not that you can't say what the topics are, because that's actually published as an agenda. We're going to go through those topics that were at this year's meeting in a moment. But what you can't do after these meetings is identify who said what. So the idea is that people can talk more freely, that there's trust within the group. It's a little too secretive, however, when people are walking around and they won't say anything. And Gideon is comfortable enough in his shoes that he will say things such as, AI was a big topic this year. A lot of people worried about AI, artificial intelligence. That was one of his key takeaways. Because there's such a strong tech influence of Bilderberg now, when I started covering the conference, it wasn't always that way. It's happened over the years because Eric Schmidt, the former chairman of Google, has been on the Bilderberg steering committee now, and along with Peter Thiel, they have brought in, founder of PayPal, they have brought in a lot of techies into the Bilderberg fold. I would argue that actually there's too many techies on the Bilderberg guest list. I don't like the idea of it getting too focused on war, drones, and tech, which I think it was this year. So, my two key takeaways and feedback to the Bilderberg Steering Committee, for what it's worth, is that I believe this conference should have more transparency to the general public so that people really know what's going on. But also, I think it's important that you not focus on fear into silencing people not to talk. I think it's more important to focus on hope. I know you have listened to me in the past and have invited more women, but I'm not just talking about young women. I'm talking about seasoned women with wisdom, and not just from the media, but from business. And it's really important. I know Jane Fraser was invited this year, CEO of Citigroup. Just on the CEO front, I want to say I didn't see a lot of CEOs from the United States this year. Perhaps the CEOs in the United States don't feel comfortable going to a conference like Bilderberg. I know Davos has got under a cloud ever since Klaus Schwab resigned, with a lot of questioning about behavior over at World Economic Forum, some of which is very bad. And I can talk about that in another video. But I do believe that the CEOs that were invited from the United States, actually, most of them were not born in the United States. Jane Fraser was born in the UK. The CEO of Pfizer was born in Greece. And I guess one of the sort of things that was discussed on X, where a lot of this goes down, was why are they discussing depopulation and migration? And everyone wants to know, what does that mean? And we're going to get to the topics now. So let's go through the topics. Number one, and what I want to mention that the topics were not in alphabetical order like last year. They were actually in the order that I believe they were discussed, which is the traditional format. So that to me makes more sense in order of how they were discussed chronologically. And the first topic, of course, was transatlantic relationship, because that's really why Bilderberg was founded. It was to nurture the transatlantic relationship between the United States, they would call it North America now, including Canada and Mexico and South America. But it's originally founded by David Rockefeller and then later on Henry Kissinger, to nurture the relationship between the United States and Europe, essentially. And so now you have a lot of countries weighing in, and the transatlantic relationship has been under stress. I mean, we can all say that. And even one of the attendees at Bilderberg a few years back is now the Vice President of the United States, J.D. Vance. And there are no accidents here. I mean, this happens a lot where a candidate someone is invited to Bilderberg, and then the next thing you know, they're on the list of President of the United States. Same thing happened with Bill Clinton. In this case, it's the Vice President, J.D. Vance, had attended Bilderberg when he was quite young, and he has said that in his view, Europe needs to develop more independence, and he has the perspective that there needs to be a development of a relationship with Asia. Some of that may be influenced by his choice of wife, which is an Indian woman, Usha Vance. But also, I think there are changes in terms of the political views of Europeans versus people in America. And one of the greatest is that, people in America elected Donald Trump. And people in Europe, unfortunately, a lot of people have been so brainwashed by liberal media that's not accurate that they don't even have a fair view of President Trump, who is a wonderful man. I've met him on a couple of occasions, and I can tell you a lot of good things about President Trump. And when we get to the transatlantic relationship, I mean, President Trump has a lot of love for, the UK, for Scotland, for many countries in Europe. He loves to travel. He's had international hotels. But he also believes in the American dream, and that it matters how the American middle class is doing. And when you are leader of a country, you better be caring about your middle class, because I've seen a lot of Davos CEOs who don't care about the middle class. They care about their own pocketbooks and doing deals, and then they talk about climate change, but they're flying on private jets. And we all know that that is just outrageous. And the fact that they try to talk about sustainability and net zero, which are, nothing wrong with recycling. Conservatives are the better recyclers there. But we also have to be realistic in terms of making sure that the economy is fair to the middle class and to everyone, women, minorities. And unfortunately, a lot of these conferences just haven't been that good at that. So let's get to the topics again. Transatlantic relationship is number 1. Ukraine is number 2. U.S. economy is number 3. Europe, Middle East, authoritarian access. The authoritarian access essentially refers to a theory that China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea are potentially a threat in terms of an alternate part of the world that has different value systems. Defense, innovation, and resilience is the next topic. This conference was very much focused on defense, because you can see the attendee list and get that. AI, artificial intelligence, deterrence, and national security. So interestingly, AI is mentioned, but in the context of deterrence and national security, which I found very interesting. Proliferation is the next topic. Geopolitics of energy and critical minerals. Now, this is interesting because energy is going to be very important, because if your world is reliant upon AI, you need energy to power it. So I think people need to start thinking about that, because energy is going to be increasingly important if you're relying on AI. Something needs to power the AI. Critical minerals, of course, help determine the wealth of a country. The last topic, which was quite controversial, was depopulation and migration. And of course, I can chime in on depopulation. I think that the male mindset has done a terrible job of encouraging working women to have children. In my own generation, there were not many companies that offered paid maternity leave. So if you're, putting women through college and MBA programs and all kinds of things, you need to have paid maternity leave. It's a given. A lot of companies didn't have it when I was coming up in the late 80s and 90s. So it's something that is, concerning. I don't think letting in young men in terms of illegal immigration is a good strategy. And it always promoting this idea, because it was all about money. And of course, the tech guys in Silicon Valley think, oh yeah, we need these H1 immigrants to hire for our engineering jobs. But the reality is that you should not be letting in a bunch of young men without families over the border. And in this case, I'm not talking about the educated people, but I'm talking about people who have no jobs, they have no family, they have no woman in their life to keep tabs on them and make sure that they're on the straight and narrow. So the illegal immigration has been a huge problem in terms of not being able to protect the women and children of the existing countries. And that is something that I would be happy to weigh in on at Bilderberg. I would like Bilderberg to be in Florida next time around, because I would like to participate, invite you all to Naples, Florida. And if I don't get invited to Bilderberg, I'd be happy to interview any of you about this, either virtually or in person here in Florida, because we've got a lot to talk about, Bilderbergers. So we're going to go now to who was at Bilderberg. I wanted to discuss the key people that attended this year's meeting, because CEOs may have turned them down. Look, going to these types of conferences, these secretive conferences like Bilderberg and Davos, is not considered the thing to do as much as, it used to be. I think the public is questioning what happens at these meetings. Why are they so secretive? Bilderberg uses Chatham House rule and doesn't want to expose what's going on. They invite a handful of media, but it's mostly liberal media that they can control. And so it's not fair in terms of who's invited from the media, in my view. It's sort of just the people that have always been invited, whether it's The Economist or Bloomberg, Financial Times, CNN tend to be the big players, and a couple of European publications. But from my vantage point, I would love to have more independent news sources involved. In addition, you often see the people from politics as well as media, people influential in the government, particularly in the area of defense, are invited, as well as some CEOs, and there's definitely an emphasis on the tech crowd, Silicon Valley in particular, and alumni of that world, because some of the Bilderberg Steering Committee members came from the tech world. Of course, Eric Schmidt came from Google, and also Peter Thiel of Thiel Capital came from, was a founder of PayPal. And a lot of these companies are involved in artificial intelligence now, drones, and a lot of this is connected because there's this push at Bilderberg to be fearful. And I guess if I were, giving some advice to these people, I would say, maybe a little bit less fear and a little more hope would probably steer the conference in a positive direction. So I think that the mindset at Bilderberg is too masculine, it's too negative, and it's too fearful. So that's my feedback there. I do see they are inviting more women, which I had asked them to do. But I think it's important to make sure that you have the right women there in terms of lots of wisdom and experience. Management consultants are always a good pick. Of course, that's what I worked in. And so we in the executive coaching business have to be brighter than our clients in some ways. And the fact that I am able to think at things, look at things from very different viewpoints helps. I am a divergent thinker, and so I will come up with ideas to think about and to discuss that other people may not have thought of. And so one of the things you have to do as an executive coach is make sure that you tell your executive or your CEO or whoever you're advising, what are the worst case scenarios? So you've got to see the problems before they do. And in order to do that, you have to be intuitive, you have to be able to see the future, and I have been able to predict a lot of world events first. I saw as soon as Trump came down the escalator the first time, I knew that he would be the next president of the United States, and I predicted it long before other people. I also knew that he would be reelected, and I predicted Imran Khan in Pakistan, the rise of Imran Khan. I predicted Brexit. There are a lot of things that I predicted that no one else saw coming. So in terms of these, transatlantic relationships, I follow a lot of what's going on in Europe as well as the United States, and have, worked with leaders and CEOs on both sides of the Atlantic. So getting to the participants for this year's conference, Stacey Abrams, who lost her election in Georgia, was invited. She actually is on the steering committee, so she reappeared at Bilderberg. There was also the European Commissioner for Financial Services and the Savings and Investment Unions there, Maria Louise Albuquerque. In addition, there was a Spanish CEO of IE University attending. The co-founder of Zero.net and CEO of TES, Italian, was there. The leader of the Social Democratic Party of Sweden, Magdalena Andersson, was there. And it was hosted in Sweden, so you're going to hear, quite a few Nordic names, and especially Sweden this year. The former Prime Minister of France, Gabriel Attal, was there. The CEO of BP in Canada was there, Murray Auchincloss. In addition, the former director of the Office of Net Assessment, Department of Defense in the U.S., James Baker, attended. Patricia Barbizet was there again. She is the chair and CEO now of Tamaris in France. Jose Barroso was there, the chair and international advisor at Goldman Sachs International. There's always been someone from Goldman Sachs International present. In addition, Valerie Botson, the CEO of Amundi, was there in France. President of a foundation from Puerto Rico was there, Leonor Beliza. The executive director of International Energy Agency, and this is an international role, Fatih Birol, was there. The executive chair of Banco Santander was there, Anna Botan. Anna is very involved in Bilderberg and has been for a very long time. Albert Bourla was there, the chair and CEO of Pfizer. He has been invited for a few years now, and to me, that is a dangerous person at Bilderberg. Borge Brenda was also there, the president of World Economic Forum. Now that World Economic Forum has, basically lost their leader, Klaus Schwab, and is under a cloud, there are a lot of American CEOs questioning whether they want to donate any money to this organization. I think that the future of the World Economic Forum is definitely in jeopardy right now. Borge was not particularly well dressed. It bothers me when these leaders attend Bilderberg and they don't have the dress code going. I think there's a very casual view right now of this conference, and I think it's impacting their mindset. In fact, if you look at the executive coaching on how people dress, it does impact how they think, and not in a positive way when you dress too casually. So just mention that to all the tech crowd as well as Borge Brenda. Next, we have the CEO of InPost there from Poland. We have Henri de Castries, who's now president of Institut Montaigne. He used to be the CEO of AXA, the big insurance company, and Henri is back at Bilderberg this year. So he's often been there. Perhaps in 2023 he was not there. But in any case, it's nice to see Henri back at Bilderberg. Jack Chambers, the Minister for Public Expenditure in Ireland, was there. Francois Philippe Champagne from Canada, the Minister of Finance and National Revenue. Jack Clark from the USA. Kate Crawford, professor of Microsoft Research, was there, USC and Microsoft Research. Christopher Donahue, commander of the U.S. Army for Europe and Africa, was there, which is interesting. Pascal Donahue, president of Eurogroup, Minister of Finance, was there. Matthias Döpfner was there. He's the chair and CEO of Axel Springer. He's often there from Germany, very involved with Bilderberg. I believe he may be on the steering committee as well. Nicholas Eberstadt, who is a scholar, was there from the USA. Daniel Ek, the CEO of Spotify, that was someone from Sweden who was there this year. Borge Ekholm, the CEO of Ericsson Group, also from Sweden. Ovind Eriksson, the president and CEO of Aker, AKER, of Norway, was there. Stefano Feltri, a journalist from Italy, was there. That, to me, is a new name on the list. There is a chair of SHV Holdings from the Netherlands. Jane Fraser, the CEO of Citigroup, was there. Jane is born in the UK, has been CEO of Citigroup for several years now. I was cheering her along when a female became the CEO of Citigroup. Although I will just mention this, Jane, I loved when you had the pink sleeveless dress when you were CEO of Citigroup, and now you're wearing the glasses and dressing in black pantsuits. So I would love to see the pink come back, Jane. Chrystia Freeland was there, Minister of Transport at Canada. That was kind of a, controversial name for some of the Canadians. Thomas Friedman, foreign affairs columnist for the New York Times, is at Bilderberg this year. The director of Carnegie Russia Eurasia Center is there. The president of the Salzburg Festival in Austria was there. The senior director for strategic planning for NSC, Kevin Harrington, was there from the United States. The co-founder and CEO of Google DeepMind was there. He's been there before, Demis Hassabis. Connie Hedegaard, the chair of KR Foundation, was there. Rebecca Henrich, senior fellow of Hudson Institute. The chair of Sherry Fitzgerald was there from Ireland. The vice chair of Cone Corporation from Finland. The general manager for international settlements at Elect Bank was there from Spain. Melody Hobson from Ariel Investments, who is from Chicago, I believe, was there and married to a Hollywood producer and director, very famous one. European Commissioner for Climate, Net Zero, and Clean Growth was there. Member of Parliament from Great Britain, Jeremy Hunt, was present. The vice chair of Nestle, Pablo Isla from Spain, was there. President and CEO of Saab, Mikael Johansson of Sweden, was there. Saab is a drone company, as I understand it, owned by the host of the conference, the Wallenberg family. So they invited their CEO. The founder of EQT Group from Sweden was there. Alex Karp, the CEO of Palantir Technologies, that's a name that you may recognize in the US, was there. He actually is very involved with Peter Thiel. Julia Klockner, the president of Bundestag in Germany, was there. The president of Polish Business Roundtable was there. Senior fellow from Hoover, Stanford University. The director of White House Office of Science and Technology Policy was there. Henry Kravis, of course, was there from KKR. He has been on the Bilderberg list for many years, as has his wife. A professor of sciences from the Ukraine was there. Chair of BNP Paribas was there from France. Dean of IE School of Politics was there from Italy. I'm going to go through the rest of this a little bit more quickly. The CEO of Volvo Group was there. I'm going to highlight some of the key names, but not all of them, because there are 130 names on this list. The co-founder and CEO of Mistral from France was there. The editor-in-chief of Bloomberg, John McElwaite, is often there. The editor-in-chief of The Economist, Sani Minton-Bedos, is there. The Prime Minister of Greece was invited. He has had relatives attend Bilderberg before. The Senator for Life from Italy was there. The CEO of Microsoft, Satya Nadella, was there again. Again, a CEO from the United States, but not born in the U.S. The King of the Netherlands was there. The Netherlands hosted the very first Bilderberg at the Bilderberg Hotel in the Netherlands. So often you will see a member of royalty from the Netherlands invited. The CEO of Ryanair, Michael O'Leary, is often there. I believe he may be on the steering committee. The fellow of Chatham House was there. That's interesting. The commander of the U.S. Indo-Pacific Command, Samuel Paparo, was there from the United States. The mayor of Le Havre, I think I've seen Edouard Philippe there before. Eurasia Center fellow was there. The chief foreign affairs commentator of the Financial Times, Gideon Rockman, was there from Great Britain. Gideon is a very approachable person and did a nice interview with some of the independent media this year, which I appreciated, being able to at least give a hello and a general guideline of the, what's already listed on the topics. I don't think he spoke out of turn at all. It's just nice it's refreshing actually to see Gideon being friendly to independent media, because he is in the media. And I wish that Bilderberg would do more of that. So that is my take on that. We also have the Secretary General of NATO there, Mark Rutte. He was the Prime Minister of the Netherlands. He was just a VP guy at Unilever not so long ago, working under Paul Pullman. And I remember, I did a fair amount of work with Paul. I know Paul Pullman very well. He contacted me when he was flying in to see Mark Rutte. They kept in touch when he was Prime Minister. And now, Rutte's done pretty well for himself. Now the Secretary General of NATO. Little bit of a question mark how a guy in HR at Unilever ends up as the Secretary General of NATO. If someone wants to explain that to me, I would love to hear it. In addition, we have some additional CEOs, co-founders, CEOs. Brian Schimpf, CEO of Anduril Industries. Look it up. We have Eric Schmidt now, who calls himself the Executive Chair and CEO of Relativity Space. I believe there's definitely a space and a drone contingent here at Bilderberg this year. A lot of emphasis on AI, tech, and war. Wish they would focus on some other things at Bilderberg. That would be my feedback in terms of putting together the agenda next time. The CEO of Deutsche Bank is there, Christian Suing, Minister of Foreign Affairs for Poland, Radoslaw Sikorski. Of course, he wrote the famous tweet, "Thank you, USA." He's married to Anne Applebaum, who also attended. They were quite casual when they ran into the independent media outside, and I was sort of taken aback at how casual they were when asked about the seriousness of world events unfolding as Bilderberg was unfolding. Because, of course, we had Israel bombing Iran at the same time that Bilderberg was going on. And it just seemed too casual, the people at Bilderberg, in terms of their reaction. So, again, this whole, Chatham House rule and all this secretiveness really bothers me, because you're not better than other people just because you're invited to Bilderberg. In fact, I think there are a lot of people who would probably refuse to go to Bilderberg at this point. So just keep that in mind, everyone. The member of Congress that was invited from the Republican side was Jason Smith. He's 44 years old, I believe, very young. I don't know if they have their eye on him for some reason, but he would have represented more of an American first sort of point of view from understanding the Trump administration. So that was interesting. Jan Stoltenberg was there from Norway. He's now the Minister of Finance. Wes Streeting, Secretary of State for Health and Social Care in Great Britain. Alexander Stubb from Finland, President of the Republic of Finland, was there. And the CEO of Microsoft AI was there, which I found interesting. There was a name that you may recognize from the Epstein files. Larry Summers attended this year, which I was sort of surprised to see him. There is a link between Peter Thiel and Epstein as well. And actually, Peter Thiel was confronted outside by an independent journalist about his link with Epstein investing in Epstein's businesses. And perhaps Larry Summers was who made the introduction initially. So a little bit of a cloud at Bilderberg this year with these names. Then Peter Thiel, of course, was there. Senior researcher at ENED in France was there. Couple of ministers, one from Italy. There's an editor-in-chief from Belgium of the Standard. There is, of course, Jacob Wallenberg, the host from the well-to-do Wallenberg family that owns the Grand Hotel where they met. He hosted the event in some ways because he chose the location. And was the chair, given it was in Sweden this year. There's a link to a drone company, a defense company, actually, it's Saab, and he invited a CEO there. Marcus Wallenberg was also there, so that's interesting. They must be related. Marcus and Jacob were both there, and both from Sweden. We'll have to look that up. Beatrice Wager was there, the president, Center for Economic Policy Research. There was a gentleman from the Netherlands who's the Minister of Justice and Security. A vice president of the European Parliament was there, Sophie Wilms. Fareed Zakaria from CNN was there, although he doesn't mention CNN in his listing, just Fareed Zakaria, GPS. But he was there, and he does have his show on CNN. Kind of bothered me how casual he was, arriving in jeans. I believe he departed in jeans as well, and was buddy-buddy with Borge Brenda from the World Economic Forum. So just remember I told you that. Borge's probably desperate for some decent press, but I don't think he's going to get it, because I think World Economic Forum is on their way out. I don't think they'll ever recover from all of this cloud that, the lawsuit and the Klaus Schwab and the whole way that they treated women, the harassment. I mean, Borge Brenda blocked me on Twitter when I asked why are there not more women invited. So I think that kind of sums up Davos and World Economic Forum for me. And finally, the last member of the list here was Gerard Zieler, who's the president of Warner Brothers Discovery International. So again, quite a few people from the media, quite a few people from government, not that many CEOs. Definitely have the tech crowd represented, the AI and drone people. There were quite a few women from the government side, but I would say the topics are just a little too male-oriented. And to interview you about this conference, Chatham House rule, we won't say who said what. I'm very good at interviewing people, and they're calling me the next Barbara Walters. It's a great place to visit and do an interview. Or if you just like to appear on camera, on video with me, or via podcast, we can arrange that as well. I'm Sandra Rupp. It's been wonderful to meet with you all and talk to you a little bit about Bilderberg. I just want to close with, I think that Bilderberg is less powerful than it used to be. I think that they have an issue right now, not really having a senior business leader running it. They really need more than one. Henri de Castries did a great job when he was the head of AXA. But there's something missing here. There are fewer influential large company CEOs here. I think they need to if they're going to have America represented, it should be CEOs who were born in the United States with those opinions. And I think that they right now don't have a sense of the people that supported Donald Trump, which basically was the majority of the United States. And until they can understand that, they're not really going to be powerful. I believe that the Republicans will be reelected. This could be a long-term issue for Bilderberg. How are they going to create a space for themselves with the Americans being so powerful under Donald Trump and future leaders that believe that you should protect the middle class of your country and you should do the right things and you should not just focus on these pie-in-the-sky ideas like space or drones or AI, but you should focus on things that matter to we the people. And that includes protecting the borders, because that is a big mistake that was made at Bilderberg. So I would just like to close by saying thank you for listening. Thank you to all the people and independent journalists covering Bilderberg. It's been great being with you for the past several days and really digging into this conference. It takes up a lot of time, especially on the weekends, and we really appreciate all of you covering this conference, and I've enjoyed being with you today. So thanks for watching. If you'd like to continue to watch my podcasts, you can subscribe on YouTube. I have had viewers in 168 countries. We have a fairly specific audience, people that are interested in conferences like Bilderberg and Davos, but also people that care about the world. And we're going to be introducing some new topics, career life, leadership, but also spirituality, how to be a better person, and some other topics which I think will be really helpful to a lot of people who need some wisdom in their life. So I hope you'll subscribe to my channel on YouTube. And thanks again for listening. Take care. Be well.